Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Paumiko Q&A. So for those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube or listening on the Paul Michael's Revolution podcast, the Paumiko Q&As are a dog training Q&A, general dog training, so it's not hunting dog related, it's just helping anyone have a nice, well-trained, controlled but fun dog to have around, no matter what you want to do with it. And the Paumiko Q&As are from the Paumiko Inner Circle, where people who are following the Paumiko Dog Guide can ask me questions and I answer them live in the Paumiko Inner Circle. And the Paumiko Inner Circle is a closed Facebook group for people who are following the Paumiko Dog Guide, which is an online dog training video series, basically with everything you need to train your own dog, whether you're training a pup from start to finish, right from everything I do with my pup or dog to with my pup on the day I pick it up. Right, we're filming everything I do with her right through to she's over 12 months old. We're already quite the way through training Miko. She's going really well. Miko's the dog we're training in the Paumiko Dog Guide. And we're also going into remedial training too, showing you what I do to retrain older dogs that already have sort of serious, deeply ingrained problems. So that's all in the Paumiko Dog Guide. You can check that out. Probably the best place to track all this stuff down would be Paumiko Dog Training on Facebook and or Instagram. And there's links to everything from there. Link in the bio on Instagram, and there's links all over Facebook. You can send us a message through those platforms, ask any questions, and all that sort of stuff. Right, so we're between Christmas and New Year's here, so a bit of a crazy time for a lot of people. We've been flat out. There's a few new videos up in the Paumiko Dog Guide since our last Q&A, and there's actually a few new videos in there since we have sent all of the people following the Paumiko Dog Guide an email updating you guys. So that's what we're going to do that this afternoon, send out an email, because not everyone comes to these Q&As, but we do. We've got new videos up in the Training Miko section, going into more stuff on her stop. Heaps of stuff in there. If you're following the Paumiko Dog Guide and you haven't seen those new videos, log in. And there's also a new video up in the remedial training section. Basically a whole heap of new stuff with training Bo, getting Bo on the Longline, taking the next step in her stop drill, and also using change of direction. There's about 3 or 4 different things we do in that one video that's sort of pulling everything together in order to take the next step with Bo and remedial training. Right, we've already got some stuff to go into here. So Andrea is asking in the Paumiko Inner Circle, we've got Luke's joined. We've got 2 people watching, it's telling me. I think one of those people might be me. But right now I can't see the live video. Oh, there it is. I've got 2 computers here. One that's actually streaming it with a massive delay, and I've got another one here that's actually showing me what everyone else is seeing. So Andrea has asked in the Paumiko Inner Circle. She's got a couple of things here. Just slurping my coffee there. Andrea, she's saying she's not sure she'll make it tomorrow. So in the Paumiko Inner Circle, we put a post up prior to running these live Q&A, so people that are following the dog guide, if they can't make it to the live Q&A, they can just ask you questions here and I'll answer them. And this is from a comment on that post. She's saying, not sure she'll make it tomorrow, but I think I've bruised wee Tucker on the throat trying some remedial lead training to stop his pulling. I didn't think I was that rough, but he's got a bit of a cough now. Any advice here? He didn't get any better. And then it's sort of like a sad emoji. He didn't get any better, sad emoji. Yeah, so you think you've bruised wee Tucker on the throat by trying some remedial lead training to stop his pulling. I didn't think he was that rough, but he's got a cough now. So this is near on impossible for me to answer here, Andrea. I mean, the very first thing, if you think I'll start with this. We've got hundreds of people using long lines and using these techniques, and we've had basically no issues with the dog and the throat and the stuff like that. I don't even know if you're on the long line or if you're on the lead or are you using a collar. But bruising on the throat, and now he's got a cough. Look, first thing would be, if you think your dog's got a sore throat, would be to take it to the vet, you know. And yeah, if you think your dog's got a sore throat, I would take it to the vet. I've never seen any throat problems through a lead. I just haven't. I have seen dogs leaning in. I've seen dogs that are completely untrained, leaning into collars so hard that they're doing that on their whole run. And the more you do it, the harder they pull, and the more they go like that. And I've seen dogs on chains, you know, running full pace, hitting the end of the chain so hard that they do a backflip and doing it over and over again. You know, poor, terribly trained and terribly handled dogs just going crazy on the chain like that, and they'll do it over and over and over. Yeah, I don't know, and you know, something like that. I've seen dogs, you give them a check on the long line and they do a bit of a cough or something, and I've definitely 100% seen it where if you start buying into something, if you do something with your dog and it does a bit of a cough or it acts like it doesn't like it, and the minute the dog sees you react to that, particularly a dog that's already got some bad habits, and it's walking you more than you walking it. And you know, if you watch in the Paumiko Dog Guide, we go into the psychology of change of direction and tension on the leash, and reading and timing, and we even talk about the way a dog can monitor you through the long line. We go or a lead. We go into that in depth in this latest video that we just put up in remedial training with Bo. Dogs are masters at reading body language, and they're masters at timing, and they're masters at playing off things. And I've seen it over and over and over, and I've answered a lot of questions. I've read a lot of comments. I've worked with lots of people in one-on-ones. I've done this a lot, and anytime I read something like, I'm not sure, but I think I've bruised wee Tucker's throat. He's got a wee cough now. I'm not too sure about it. Any advice here? He didn't get any better. I'm like, well, what was actually going on? And were you sort of timidly trying a few things, and Tucker coughed a couple of times, and you sort of got all finicky and trying to play into or read into what he was doing too much, and wee Tucker's actually just playing you like a guitar, you know, and he's just reading. So that's the biggest thing, you know. So again, we've done this with hundreds and hundreds of dogs. We've got hundreds of people out there doing it. I've done it with a lot of dogs. I've never had any problems with injuring a dog. And perhaps the most important thing to talk about here too is, you know, if the whole idea of using these correct techniques in a long line and change of direction, all of these things, is to stop a dog pulling on the lead. So there's no pressure on their throat. and I see it a lot where people are like, oh, I get to get a harness because my dog was pulling too hard on the lead and it was hard on their throat. Well, it's not the lead or it's not the harness, or it's how you're doing it. It's reading and timing and technique. And I can walk Miko on a lead now with no pressure on the long line or lead. So yeah, this whole of my dog's got a sore neck thing, and that's my advice on it. It's just you've got to make sure you're getting your reading and timing and everything bang on. And if there's a situation where you feel like you're hurting your dog's neck, something isn't right there, and so I'm really interested to hear your feedback on that, Andrea, and what's going on there. If you get really stuck, send us a message. We can have a talk about it. We'll definitely do whatever we can to get you on the right track. But just from that comment and trying to answer it right now on the spot with you not here, that's just all of the things that come to mind for me at the same time. You've also, next thing from Andrea, also starting a dog running with bikes. Yeah, that's a good question. Starting a dog running with bikes. So then the next one says that how much can we exercise a 5.5-month-old Vizsla mix? Don't want to overdo it with the little guy. So, and which those sort of two things are closely linked. And then with things like running with bikes, I wouldn't do that personally. I wouldn't do stuff like that until, if you're still dealing with things like pulling and you can't get those basics sorted, I would probably lean away from running with the bikes until he's a little bit older. Miko's around 10 months old now, and she's just starting to get to the point where, obviously we were going over how to give a dog freedom sessions in the Paumiko dog guide without teaching a dog really bad issues. And bad habits. A lot of people have really serious problems with their dogs that are brought about by giving their dog too much freedom, and when they're too young, and my Vizsla's 5.5 months old, I want to go take it for a run on the bike, and so you before you've even got on leash sorted, you're taking them off leash and they're running around and running into distractions and tearing off and doing all sorts of stuff, and that can lead to anything from a niggly, annoying issue like now your dog runs off with other dogs all the time, or it just ends up terrible around distraction, through to getting a fright from something or getting dominated by an older dog, and now it's got a weird socialization issue with other dogs, through to timidness, aggression, right through to just flat out getting run over and killed. And I've seen all of those from one end of the spectrum to the other many, many times, through just letting trying to do too much with your dog too soon. So we'll be getting to all of that sort of stuff in the Paumiko dog guide, and we'll be getting to it relatively soon too. We've already shown you how I was beginning to give Miko those freedom sessions, when she was only a few months old, and we're doing it in a controlled way after we had a whole bunch of other stuff set up, and we were only doing it at certain times in certain environments in certain ways to make sure nothing goes wrong. It's all very simple stuff, but it's just lots of those small, simple steps all in the right order, making sure you're not leaving anything out and you're not doing anything too soon. So we'll get into that in the Paumiko dog guide, Andrea, but my advice for your particular question right here would be, if your dog if Tucker's 5.5 months old and you're still smoothing out stuff on leash, then I would definitely, hold fire for a bit on that for you and Tucker, and then, once you've got that, 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 once you've got that And I think by the time your Tucker's a few months behind where we're at with Miko, I think by the time over the next month or two where you're getting to that point where you can do that with Tucker, I think we'll actually have some videos on this actual subject. Because Miko's starting to get really good. The next videos we'll be doing on her is how much space I'm giving her now. She's dragging the long line out in a massive park, and now I've got my stop drill where she can be 20 meters away and I say, Miko, sit, and she drops right on the spot. She's dragging a long line, but I'm not touching it. And then I can walk way away, 50 meters away at the moment. I can run around in circles. I'm adding a bit of distraction. All of that control and is slowly building as she's maturing. And it's slowly giving me all those tools I need to do. She's getting more freedom now. We'll be making videos on taking her for swims, tearing around, obstacles, confidence. And we'll be getting right into things where I'm actually going to start doing some running with her, which then that'll couple with things like the bike. And once we have all of those pieces of the puzzle in place and everything's right, then it's actually really easy to go, let's go run with a bike. But then your next comment, which is a really good point, is lastly, how much can we exercise a 5.5-month-old Vizsla mix? Don't want to overdo it with a little guy. And no, it's a really good point, because you don't, and there's lots of different schools of thought on this. But the main general consensus is that you can overdo it while the pup is young and growing. And that's another one of the videos that's going to be coming up really shortly with Miko. As we're getting into more movement, running, she's starting to swim, she's wanting to jump in and out of the truck. I'm wanting to do things like running with her. And, she's 10 months old, so she's quite, approaching a year old over the next couple of months or few months. And so those are all considerations that come into play. And I really, me personally, and there's lots of different theories and ideas on this. You could ask a vet, but one vet will tell you one thing, another vet will tell you something slightly different. But again, it comes back to what's the general consensus, and it is that it is a good idea to restrict a pup or dog's level of activity until a certain age, until their bones and joints are fully developed and hardened up. And for me, obviously, if you've watched our videos, if you've watched the Paumiko dog glide, even some of our free stuff, my dogs run around, and Miko has run around and played from a young age, but not like putting her next to a bike and me, doing a downhill mountain biking track for 30 minutes, with me riding the bike with her running next to me, running full pace, jumping and jarring and bouncing and skidding over obstacles and things. So for me, it's really, she can do what she wants to do when left in a space. So you'll see her off leash at the beach in her freedom sessions, and I just let Miko, and the beach is good because it's softer sand and there's no, hard obstacles or things to bump into. And I'm always aware about that too, like what sort of space is my 5, 6, 7, 8-month-old pup running around and getting super hyper excited in, because I've seen it a lot as well, where you let a dog, or more often the problems come when you let multiple dogs run flat out and get super excited, and especially when a younger dog is getting really excited with older dogs that have more control and they're just more mature and smarter. They've got more life experience. A younger pup can actually end up seriously hurting itself, crashing into stuff, skidding into things. I'm always really aware of what is in the environment that particularly a young dog is running around like crazy in. And I've seen it multiple. I've seen where young dogs have broken legs just playing in the wrong environment, and so there's that whole injury side of it where they can just get crazy and flat stick run into something and break a leg, and it happens. But there's also that whole bones and joints thing, and potentially setting your dog up for a situation where, because the thing is, a lot of the issues through this aren't going to pop up till your dog's older. And you might put your young pup next to your bike and let it run its legs off for, 40 minutes or whatever, or next to the motorbike or the car or whatever you want to do, and it's going to love it and it'll really want to do it, and you might not see any issues from that thing. It's the best thing ever, but that dog might have bone and joint issues later on, hips, knees, and different stuff like that. So it is a consideration, and I do restrict it with my dogs until a certain age. Even I'm still building up to 12 months, but by 12 months they're doing more. By 18 months to 2 years, to me, they're doing everything that they're going to physically that I'm going to want them to do. But I am building up to it, and we will go over all of that in the Paumiko Dog Guide. Again, there's a heap more videos that we're going to be pumping into that. We're going to be putting a lot more videos into it than we have been over the last few weeks. But so for you, Andrea, as far as what to do right now would be, if you haven't watched those new videos in the Paumiko Dog Guide, there's some new ones up with Miko, and the new one that we've just put up with Bo in the remedial training section will be really good, because we go right into depth in things like the dog reading us on the lead. You're saying remedial lead training. So maybe you're doing it on the lead too. If you're doing remedial lead training, you're probably working on like the things that we did with Odin in the Paumiko Dog Guide in the lead fundamentals, and maybe even some other stuff that we're doing with Bo on the short leash too. Or we've just got Bo on the long line, which it can help a lot actually. We can do a lot more with the long line than we can with the short leash. There's a lot more slack there. We can give the dog more room. We can keep slack in the long line easier. We can read the dog. We can do more non-communicative turns and non-communicative training, and that really can help to raise attentiveness. That's basically the one of the main topics of the new video there that's in the remedial training with Bo, is all about just getting that attentiveness and stopping the dog pulling on a leash, getting its focus back on you, and how we use a long line rather than a short leash to do that. So definitely, Andrew, if you haven't checked that out, I would get into that. But it really is, a long lead for people that are listening on the podcast or just watching for free on Facebook and YouTube. A long line is a 7 meter long piece of string. We'll make a free video on it and get it up on Facebook and YouTube on the Paumiko stuff. But it's 7 meters long, and it's a light piece of string, and it allows us to do so much more with the dog while still having control of it. So we're not taking it fully off leash to set it up to fail and learn bad habits. We've still got it on a leash. We've still got control of it, but we've got 7 meters to use. And often a huge part of that 7 meters is so we can have 2 or 3 meters that we're not even using, that slack the whole time. And then we can do what we call non-communicative change of direction, where we've actually got complete slack on the long line, and we can watch for the dog, for when the dog completely forgets about us, completely tunes us out and goes to walk off, and we can turn the dog from a slack long line. So the long line's just dragging on the ground. The dog can't feel the difference between being 1 meter away from us or being 5 meters away from us. And that's the huge thing. The dogs do a lot of reading you or keeping track of you through a leash. And the leash actually becomes a tool that the dog uses to be inattentive. And this is a huge one. It's huge. Often a leash, and this is what happens with harnesses. A harness is just like a version of that on steroids, where the dog can just pull way, way harder. Hey, while I'm monologuing, Luke and Nick, do you guys have any questions? Just chuck them in the comments. So a lead it becomes a tool that the dog's leaning into it. It knows where you are the whole time because you're literally connected to it. It can feel you there. The harder it pulls, the more it can feel you, so it can completely forget about you and just pull like mad and do what it wants, and it's puffing and wheezing and doing a correction from a tight lead or long line doesn't do anything. It's just adding fuel to the fire. And we talk about this in the leash fundamentals, how any time it's opposing force. Dogs and a lot of other animals too will just push back against any force. I learnt this farming, trying to get cows in a cow shed, and to the point where if there's a cow that doesn't want to go up into the cow shed, a cow's what, depending on what it is, 350, 450 kilos, very strong, big animal, and that cow just doesn't want to step in that last meter and press up to the cow next to it. You get in beside it and push, and they just lean back against you. And when I was farming, in the actual particular case that I'm thinking of right now, is I was 14. I don't know what I weighed when I was 14, but a lot. There's nothing I could do to a cow, and you'd get in behind them and push them, and they just lean back in. They're almost asleep. You're like a fly that they want to swat off with their tail. It's just having no effect on them. And the harder you push, the harder they lean back, and to the point where if you leaned against a cow and they're just leaning back, if you all of a sudden let go, they'd actually lose balance and take a step towards you. It's opposing force. Dogs do the exact same thing. You put a lead around it and put pressure on the lead, the dog just automatically leans against it. You pull back harder, the dog automatically pulls back harder, and everything just escalates. And with a dog, when you do that, when a dog sees a distraction that it wants to go towards, like another dog, and it walks to the end of that leash, walks out the 1.5 meters or whatever is in front of you, puts tension on the leash, and you pull back, the dog leans into it harder, so that physical energy's building, the mental focus also builds. So the more pressure that you put on the leash while the dog is focusing mental energy on that distraction, its focus and intensity goes up too. That's why dogs on a leash, when you get a dog that starts getting silly around other dogs and you start pulling back and you don't know how to use change direction and reading and timing, you don't know how to use a lead properly, as the dog starts leaning into it, as you start pulling back, the dog gets more and more excited. Mere interest can turn to excitement, can turn to aggression, and you start pulling harder, and now you're yelling at the dog and the dog's barking, and everything just escalates out of control. And proper lead work is all about no tension on the leash, getting that tension out of the leash, having slack in it, using change of direction, reading. We're going to get into non-communicated stops is an important thing, and just having general like control and dialogue and a relationship and bond and attentiveness with your dog, where it actually cares about you. And if you turn around and walk the other way, it's like, oh, where's he or she going? Where's the boss going? It's not, a dog that's like that doesn't care that there's a breakdown in the bond and the communication. When people that don't have a recall on their dog don't have the right relationship with their dog. When you've got things set up right with the dog, and you call its name, Miko come, or I call Print, or here Print, here Fly, they're like, the boss is calling. They're super interested in why I'm calling. They hear that, they just spin around and come flying in. And it's the same with the stop drills too. Having a stop drill on a dog and doing that in the right way, stepping in and out and giving praise and the release and the way you set it up so the dog's looking forward to it and wants to look to you and wants to listen to you. It's all the same stuff. It's all about getting it set up properly, and just understanding it all, and that's sort of what the Paumiko dog guide and the way I train and teach people to train is all about. And coming back to the long line versus the lead versus a short lead, that's just giving us room to be able to practice all of that stuff properly. It's huge. For people listening that aren't following the Paumiko dog guide, we'll do a free video on this soon. Okay, some other questions. Luke is saying, hi Paul, this is Betty. She's a 10-week-old bull Arab Kelpie. She's settling into crate training well. We are finding when she is out of her crate, she does not respond to the... Oh, yep. I remember reading this last night. She does not respond to the verbal command of disapproval when she is either whining or doing something we would like her not to. What other pressures can we apply to her? And with applying praise, is a verbal good girl enough? Or is it best to give a physical pat at her age? Yeah, Kate. So you're saying she's a bull Arab cross. So quite a hardy breed. The type of dog that. Bull Arab. When I'm thinking about bull Arab, I know people use them for pig dogs a lot. Hard dogs. They're not gonna. They're bred to naturally not be as concerned about things as some dogs will, and you'll see that coming right through as a pup, where with a breed that could be naturally inclined to be more naturally timid or smart, when it's 10 weeks old and someone's going, cut it out. Some breeds straight away, take notice of that, and some breeds won't take so much notice of that. And it's not all about breed either. The individual dog plays a huge part, the individual dog within that breed, and it can even be a huge part of the way you're doing it too, and your vibe and energy and everything. Man, I'll tell you a really big one for that, for a pup. If I'm going, and it's not really paying much attention, stomp of the foot, man. It's depending on the ground. If you're on a wood floor and you bang, stomp of the foot with that for example, if a pup was sitting in its crate, on doing its crate training, and I was sitting there watching it, and it started chewing its bedding or something like that, and I went and it just sort of looked up like, what was that interesting noise? And then it looked away. Next time I'd stomp my and a big bang, that gets their attention. Things like that, you can bang on the crate. I know what you mean, and you basically just have to elevate it until the point's getting across. You're not meant to do that, when we talk about pressure and praise in Paumiko dog training, we use pressure and praise. It's not all about just putting pressure on the dog and telling it off when it does something wrong, and it's not all about just praising it when it does something right. And we don't actually even use treat training. We just use praise, and we talk about putting pressure on what we don't want and praise on what we do want. I don't care what you're doing. If you're using a system that just puts pressure on or just puts praise on, you won't get the same results as if you use both in perfect balance. And we talk about reading and timing. So reading the dog, doing everything, putting that pressure on what you don't want right at the right time, releasing it, and we also talk about measure. And so pressure on what you don't want, praise on what you do want. The reading, timing, and measure of the application and releasing of that pressure and praise is really, really important. And the basic rule is the minimum amount of pressure and praise or praise to get the job done. So you don't want to go crazy with praise when just good dog would have done, because you can actually make the dog forget what it's just done or learnt by going crazy with praise. You don't want to go crazy and go, get out of it, and stomp your foot and go mad at a dog when you could have just gone, cut it out. Or just even, it could just be, it doesn't have to be a big, You might just go, hey, or It's always the minimum amount, but you don't want to do not enough either. I've seen it a lot in like one-on-one sessions and things, and people are saying, I'm trying it and I'm using the command of disapproval, or I'm using the change of direction, but my dog's just not getting it. And so we do a one-on-one, and I say, okay, show me what you've been doing. Or at the start of a one-on-one, I always want to watch for a while, see what that person's been doing. I don't want to march straight in and take over before I've even seen what's been happening. And it can be very soft and fluffy and wishy-washy, and the dog does something and the person's sort of like, and they slowly step in and there might be a stop drill and put the dog back. No, sit down, no. And all you got to do is, hey, sharpen up on it, Some people are just naturally very cruisy. I did a one-on-one with a guy a while ago. He was just a super cruisy dude. Even just talking to him, he was chill. And some people have more intensity. Some people have too much. And you have to, good dog training can look very schizophrenic or split personality. And it's pressure on what you don't want, praise on what you do want. And if you hold the pressure on, if say I'll use a stop drill, for example, if the dog goes to get up and you step forward, and your body language is you're leaning in with your hand out and you're all intense, and as soon as you move and go, the dog freezes. If you hold that, your body language tense and keep leaning forward and keep your hand out, the dog will just freeze. Sometimes they won't even sit properly. They'll go to get up off the stop, you'll go, and they'll just sort of pause half up, and they won't sit back down until you relax your body language. So you've got to release the pressure. And other times when you're riding close with the dog, they might go to get up and you'll go, cut it out. And then because you have to release the pressure straight away, the timing, it's not only the timing of applying pressure and praise, it's the timing of releasing pressure and praise too. So if you're stopping a dog from getting up, you go, and the second it stops, you need to relax all your body language. Otherwise, you're holding the pressure on after it stopped, which isn't good. So there's all these things, but it's got to be enough too. And that can cause a lot of trouble if you're a little bit soft with your dog. And it's not always about volume or and it's definitely not about how hard you turn a dog or how hard you check it on a leash or long line. It's more about the tone of it. You can do a big, long, slow pull really hard and it won't have much effect. But you do a soft but fast little check that's a full surprise, it'll have a huge effect. And again, the timing of applying and releasing pressure. If you do that big, hard, slow pull and pull a dog right in and then hold the pressure on even while the dog's trying to do the right thing, you can do that for the rest of your dog's life and you're not going to get anywhere. But you do a perfectly timed timed, sharp little check that comes as a complete surprise right while the dog is doing what you don't want it to do. And the second it turns around and begins to do the right thing, all of that pressure comes off and you switch from a check to a good dog. And everything relaxes. It's the timing of that it's the tone of that check, and then it's the timing of switching from pressure to praise is hugely important. That's really important too. We're always trying to, I talked about this in another recent Q&A, that pressure is to show the dog what you don't want it to do. But every single time you show a dog what you don't want it to do, you've got to show it what you want it to do it instead. You've always got to give it that positive alternative. You're turning it away from one thing, saying, no, I don't want you to do that. But every time you do that, it has to lead into what you do want the dog to do, and then you've got to praise it for that. So the turn is like that sharp check that comes as a surprise with the right tone. And then as it turns back and walks towards you and it's coming closer to you, good dog, you give it a pat there. It's the same with Luke's pup in the crate. The tone of that correction has to be just right. The tone and the timing and everything. Bang. And then as soon as it stops or relax, good dog. And release that pressure as well. He's talking about the verbal. We're finding when she's out of her crate, she does not respond to the verbal command disapproval when she is either. Oh, the crate training's fine. It's when she's out of the crate. The stomp of the foot would be a go-to for me. And what other pressures can I apply to her? Man, especially with a 10-week-old pup, other than command disapproval, big stomp of the foot, you can even walk towards her. So it'd be handy to know. I think you're listening to Luke. Oh, yep. It's usually when the kids are inside and she is whining at the door to get in. Okay, 10-week-old pup. So is that when she's outside, Luke? Oh, no luck with the stomp either. Okay, so this is the situation you're dealing with. So to give me exact context to this, the situation you're dealing with is a 10-week-old pup is outside and the kids are inside and the pup's whining at the door. Can you just confirm that? Outside in free time. Yeah. I mean, that's a situation that is going to be very, very difficult to do any. First thing here with this particular case, I was monologuing on a whole heap of general stuff before. Now we've got more context on this. 10-week-old pup, I wouldn't expect a 10-week-old pup to be left outside on free time, so she's not 100% knowing what she's meant to be doing, and then have kids and people around inside and have her not whine or do something with that, that she's set up to fail there, and you, at her age, in that situation, trying to deal with it with pressure, it's not no good. So, and when you run into a situation like that where you're like, man, I'm trying to work this thing out with my pup. First thing, 10 weeks is very, very, very young. So young. You're expecting next to nothing out of her at this age, eh? You know, like what was I doing with Miko during the first month? Bit of crate training. She was getting a little bit of time out of the crate inside, a little bit of time out of the crate outside, but pretty much keeping an eye on her, and that was very, restricted. And I was taking her to the park. Well, I barely even was taking Miko to the park at that stage because she didn't have her. I wasn't, because she didn't have her. She wasn't clear from her shots. So in that first month, it's basically, I'm not really expecting anything from the pup or dog. I'm trying to get her quiet in her crate. I don't want her to be going to the bathroom inside. I'm trying to set up some basic stuff there. I'm trying to link actions to sounds. I'm not even going for any compliance work. I'm trying to link actions to sounds like the come and the sit and some super, super basic stuff. But I basically didn't even start doing much of that until Miko was 12 weeks old. And then we started taking her out to the park once she was fully immunized. And even then, at 12 weeks old, I was only linking actions to commands. We weren't even really doing any compliance work. So, yeah, that's my take on that, Luke. That's just way too much for a 10-week-old pup. And trying to give her a command of disapproval to expect her to be quiet outside while everything's happening inside, it's just not going to happen. And if you sort of stick to the program and the Paumiko dog guide, I think by the time she's at the age where you should expect that, she will be, So my biggest thing there, if you're getting in that, to just eliminate the situation, that's a classic case of setting her up to fail. And it's one of the Paumiko principles, training for success, and just not setting your dog up for failure. And now you're in a situation where you get a 10-week-old pup outside, situation's way too, and you're banging and stomping a foot and using your command of disapproval, which is watering that down. So that's going to be, you don't want to do that. And yeah, does that make sense, man? Oh, she's with you outside, not left alone. So she's with you outside, yeah. Dude, for now, I just stop expecting all of that stuff. And again, I mean, yeah, over the next couple of weeks, I just chill out for 2 weeks, man. If your crating's going well, that's awesome. I would try to just eliminate that situation where she's stuck whining at the door while the kid, just eliminate that as much as you can. Ask the kid to not be on the other side of the door while you're outside with the pup, or try to get around the corner and just do that stuff with her. And then once you're on a long line, you can take her out into a low distraction of, well, that's a big distraction for a 10-week-old pup, eh? The kid's been there, and I'm guessing the kids aren't just sitting quietly. For the pup to be like really focusing on them and whining, there's probably movement and sound, and the kids probably get to play with the pup, so the pup's just wanting to do that. That's a huge distraction, man. In another couple of weeks, you can get out to the park with a long line on and start setting all this stuff up in a low distraction environment. That's super important, man, because any time that you're trying to work with a pup or dog in a situation where it's just distracted and you're giving commands and the pup or dog isn't listening, is just teaching you. We talk about this, say over and over and over. Every time you give a pup or dog a command that it doesn't listen to, is teaching it that it doesn't have to listen to you. And another thing, I don't know if I've said it in the Paumiko dog guide, but I've said it a lot elsewhere, is practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect permanent. You might want to rewind that. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect permanent. So if you're like, oh, I'll just practice until it's good, but you're practicing in a high distraction environment where things aren't going well, that's what you're making permanent. Whatever you're practicing, whatever's happening over and over and over, that's what you're making permanent. So if a pup's whining and distracted and not listening to you while you're with it, that's what you're making permanent. That's what you're practicing. And that's why perfect practice is so important. Everything you're doing with a pup or dog is shaping and molding what it's going to be forever. And that's why, it's so important to do everything step by step. Get into a zero distraction environment and very carefully practice some things. That's why we use a Longline. So every time we call a pup or dog, we can get it to come to us every single time, because that's perfect practice. That's what leads us to the point where it comes off leash. If you're like, I'll just practice my recalls until my dog gets it right, and you're going, here pup, come here, Miko come, and it's not coming, and you just think you're going to keep practicing it until it does. It's not. You're teaching your dog to not come when it's called, literally training it to not come when it's called, so yeah, really important, all of that stuff, eh? Is there any other questions here, guys and girls? Does that make sense, Luke? Man, I'll just chill out for a couple of weeks. Pup's so young. 12 weeks is a good age to get out on the long line. And the whole idea of getting out with your pup one-on-one on a long line in a low distraction environment is to start to get that perfect practice. Start to get your pup listening and looking at you, and focusing on you, And the whole idea of a freedom session is that it's a freedom session. That's a huge one too. Separating training from freedom, and not like letting your pup out with the kids and running around or doing whatever it's doing while it's distracted. If it's a freedom session, just that's all it is. And you let it run around, and you don't give your dog commands when it's in a situation that it's not going to listen to. That's a huge one. Oh, yeah, Luke, yep, we'll do. Crate and toilet training's going well. That's good, man. And that's really, man, if you can get that, wrapped up by 12 weeks old, and you've got a pup or a dog that's good in the crate and toilet training's going well, and then by 12 weeks old, you can start linking actions to commands. That's really all I was doing with Miko from 12 weeks through to 16 weeks. And then we start introducing some super basic compliance. And then, by the time our pups, and then we keep going through the steps, by the time our pups 4 or 5 months old, we've got recalls, and we're getting a bit of control, and we've got a stop drill, and they're good in a kennel, and they're traveling. And like Miko's coming up 10 months old now, and man, she's looking really good. We're playing a bit of catch up and getting the stuff in the Paumiko dog guide, but as far as where Miko's at and all the stuff that's going to be in the dog guide over the next couple of months, she's coming along very, very, very well, and everything I've done with her is in the Paumiko dog guide. A lot of it's patience. A lot of it's just patience. Luke's saying he hasn't started any commands yet. Yep, that's sweet, man. Another couple of weeks of just enjoying having that tiny little puppy around. Get all your crating set up. Try not to set her up to fail. Try not to have her in a situation where you're trying to give commands and she's not listening, and then hook into that stuff. I think it's in part 2 of training Miko, where we just start that super basic long line training out in the park. Do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and then just follow on through the Paumiko dog guide, man. There's part 4 of training Miko's up now. Part 5's coming soon. Miko's just at the stage now where, she's perfect in the crate inside. She can do it nights inside in the crate. 100% fine. She can do all night outside in the kennel. She's fine travelling in vehicles. She's fine out of the crate inside as well. She's approaching the point where she's basically fully house trained, and she'll be able to do sleep inside, out of the crate, on her own, unsupervised, with no worries at all, basically fully house trained. In part 4, we're going to put this in part 4 actually before we start part 5, is sitting on a mat. Like I've got print and fly all set up. They're fully house trained. They sleep inside and outside and wherever I want them to, really. And it's always about having all those options set up. It's all very well having a fully house trained dog, but it sucks having a fully house trained dog that you can't put in a kennel one night when you have to, or that it has to go to the vet one time and stay there, and it's howling its guts out all night because it's never been taught how to be on its own in a different situation. It's always about having everything set up, which is what's best for the dog. You don't want any massive gaps anywhere. You don't want your dog not knowing how to do really basic stuff that it might have to do one day. That's the really important thing. Is not going, oh look, but I want my dog to do this, or I want my dog to do that. That's all very well and good, and you can always you can do that. You can, but it's not about ignoring the other side as well, but I want my dog to do this. Yeah, but hang on, what about if it has to do that one day? And you sort of got to think about all these things in advance, because then when the day comes that you need it and it's not there, you can have some serious issues on your hands, and you can set your dog up for a lot of anxiety and just not having a good time type of thing. Miko's super happy wherever I put her. She can sleep inside in the crate, she can sleep outside in the kennel. She's happy outside in the dog-proof section. She's happy on a long line. She's happy on a short leash. She's at 10 months old, she's starting to get some really good control off leash. And we get into the point where we're going to have that control off leash around distraction. She's good around kids, good around other dogs, socializing, or, it's about just having that dog set up to be happy and comfortable and confident in all situations, really. And it's all going into a lot of it's in the Paumiko dog lot already, and what's not already in there is going in. Do we have any other questions here, people, on the live feed? What else did I have? I think I had a couple of other questions via message through Paumiko. So Paumiko, for people listening to the podcast or listening or watching on Facebook or YouTube, Paumiko is spelled Paumiko. You type Paumiko dog training into Facebook or Instagram and it'll all come up. We've got a couple of websites and things, but they're sort of all over the place. We'll probably be getting a new website for that coming up soon, but in our experience, most people use social media. All the links to our websites are there on Facebook and Instagram. We're going to be running some competitions in 2019, doing some giveaways and things, so it's always good if you want to follow and keep up with those, or just we'll be putting out more free videos, more Q&As and loads of things, so jump on social media and give Paumiko Dog Training a follow. Just checking a couple of messages here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Here's one here from Megan about her dog getting very worked up by seeing another dog on leash or in the car. This barking can be very aggressive to the point of not being able to get her to listen to me. I don't know whether I should be ignoring the barking and not responding to her, or to teach her the command to bark and then not bark, which is a little bit of a... Some people say, oh, your dog's barking too much. You need to teach it to bark on command, and so you can teach it a command to not bark as well, which I can sort of see a bit of sense in that. But the biggest thing is don't ignore it. Don't ignore stuff. If your dog's doing stuff that you don't want it to do, don't stand by and ignore it. Quite often, and again, reading and timing, as soon as it barks, that first little bark of whine, hey, cut it out. Stamp your foot, touch it, give it a touch on the shoulder, hey, cut it out. And then, again, coming back to what I was talking about earlier, don't just tell it what not to do. Hey, cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. That it wants to do something. It's trying to work out what to do. Cut it out. And then again, this is where good dog training can look very schizophrenic at times, because you go, hey, cut it out. And then the dog looks back to you and the distraction's still there and the dog's not barking for 2 seconds. Now give it a pat. This is what I want you to do. Just be normal. Just stand here while we drive past another dog. Then the next dog that you drive past, the second the dog makes the tiniest noise, oi! And the second it looks away from because that's what that does, is it snaps the dog out and makes it look at you. And as soon you can go from that to the soon as it's looking at you, give the dog a pat. Good dog. It's now doing the right thing, isn't it? It's not barking anymore. Don't hold the pressure on. Don't go and when the dog barks at the other dog, and then as soon as it looks away and looks to you, some people will go, don't do that. Bad dog, don't do that. So to the dog, you've gone, and it's instantly stopped, and it's looked at you, and now you're going, don't do that. So what? Don't not bark and don't not look at the dog and look at you as that bad dog as well. You can switch reading and timing and the application and releasing of pressure and praise. Good dog. Good dog. It can look like that. Sometimes it looks like, good dog. Good dog. Your real extreme timing and switching from pressure to praise and from praise to pressure. Pressure on what you don't want, praise on what you do want. Really, really important. Anytime you put pressure on a dog, trying to stop it from doing something, you're trying to snap it straight out of that, bang straight into good dog. This is what I want you to do. And then, in the case of the dog barking at other dogs, if you're really good with that and you hit the first tiniest little whine or noise, you can actually, not even if your dog barks at other dogs, even you might be driving past, your dog sees another dog, you can actually put pressure on the dog, correcting the thought. We talk about this in the Paumiko Dog Guide. Correct the thought, not the barking. So you can drive along or be sitting in the car park one day and a dog comes around the corner, and the first thing that your dog will do to tell you it's about to bark will be just its body language will change. If your dog's just chill and just like looks over, oh, there's a dog, and it's just like relaxed, it's not telling you it's going to do everything. If a dog stiffens up and its ears change, it's telling you, man, I'm really interested about doing something about this dog over here. And then you sit there, you go, oh, he's not barking yet, so I won't do anything. But the dogs community, we talk about this in the Paumiko Dog Guide at length in a video called Calm Handling and Remedial Training. It might be in Training Miko or in Remedial Training, I can't remember. That body language of the dog pricking up, if the dog could speak, if it was a person that could talk, it would be saying, man, check out that dog. I don't really like that dog. I might bark at that dog soon. I think I am. And then it's getting more intense and it's wriggling and it's moving. I think I am. I'm going to bark at it. Should I bark at it? I'm about to bark at it. And you just sit there saying nothing. And then it starts barking. You know, and so you can start to correct that body language. You're correcting the thought. You're watching a dog for the moment when it begins to think about doing something and just cut it out. Settle down. And then if you can get it to look back to you, or even you can then praise it as its body language relaxes. And you can, so before your dog has even barked, you're trying to fix this problem with your dog barking at other dogs. The barking is just a symptom of the way your dog is reacting and thinking about other dogs. It's really the way your dog's thinking about other dogs. So again, that's what it's called, correcting the thought. So you can watch your dog, watch for that intense body language, correct that, and any change, its body language doesn't have to be perfect, but if its body language gets better, you can praise your dog relaxing, or even trying to relax, or turning its focus back onto you while that dog's still there. And that's giving it that positive alternative. Your dog's seen the dog, you've corrected it, and they're sort of stuck halfway. Okay, I'm not meant to do that, but what am I meant to do? And if you can catch them, even in some of the stuff's in like split second, less than a second. If I even see a dog that's doing something like that, half turn its head back towards me, so its brain is going from focusing on the dog in a negative way to turning back towards me, I can start putting praise on that turning back towards me, because that's a step in the right direction. So the dog comes around the corner, my dog stiffens up and looks at it, I can go, cut it out. And as soon as it looks back towards me, I can go, good dog, good dog. And then if it darts its head back to the other dog, I can go, cut it out. And then it'll look back towards me and I can give it some praise. And you can basically sit there going, good dog, good dog, good dog, good dog, good dog. And then they're going, am I not meant to be an idiot every time another dog's around a week? I can actually just relax and chill with you, and I'm not even meant to be doing that. You know, dogs get stuck in these weird patterns, and it's often that they don't even want to be doing it. They're often doing it because they think they're meant to. They think they're supposed to, because of the way we are unknowingly communicating with them. And all our reading and timing and everything's so far off. And then we end up so far down that road of just layers and layers of stuff going wrong for so long. It's just these simple things are just buried under all of this crap, you know. Any other questions? I see Andrea's here. Andrea, I had a big talk about, you'll be able to come back and watch this once it's up, and we'll also throw it up in the Paumiko Dog Guide and on the podcast and all over the place. But I had a good talk about your question, Andrea, at the start of this. Any other questions? Yeah, so Miko, I'm just super stoked with her. She's coming along really nicely, really nice dog. Yeah, and everything's just falling into place. Next videos up are going to be, I'm going to do one on jumping in and out of the truck now that she's getting a bit of age and wanting to do more. And that's a big consideration of that, Andrea, is, you know, how much do we want to do with the young pup? Do I want a 10-month-old Miko, you know, jumping 1.5 meters in and out of my truck onto concrete? Not necessarily, but I also don't want a dog that doesn't know how to hop up off and on things for when it's older, that I have to lift in and out of everything, you know. So, you know, you might not necessarily want your dog to jump in and out of stuff, but you also might want to as well. We already showed you how I set up my dogs so they don't come bowling out of the door. You know, when I open the truck, I've got Miko sitting and waiting before she comes flying out. Open the back of the truck, and it's the same for any door. I could open the door at the house and I could say, you know, Miko sit, Miko wait. She'll wait. Open a door. It's basically that opening a door isn't a command to go flying through it, you know. and it's just a super handy thing. The rule of transfer comes into play there too, and it's a health thing with things like opening a truck, back of my truck, and a pup come spilling out onto the concrete, or even just jarring their joints over and over and over. And it's a huge safety thing too with opening the back of your vehicle on the side of the road, and you're going to go take your dog for a walk in the park or somewhere, and you've created a situation where just opening the back of the truck is a command for the dog to come bowling out of it. There's all these things, all these little things, and everything's interconnected. A dog that comes flying out of the truck, or the car, or flying through doors and all of that without any consideration to the person opening the thing, or without any consideration to any type of control or attentiveness or awareness of the situation, will tend to be a dog that could be quite difficult in other areas too. And then a dog that if we handle simple situations like that with a little bit of control, that's that good practice, perfect practice. And then that sort of practice and attentiveness and awareness and all that then transfers to everything else, It really does. So we'll be doing that. We'll be doing a video on, I'm going to get Miko sitting on her mat inside. So basically using her mat like a place marker. So pretty much starting to get and it's another step in house training is what it is. Miko's fine in her crate. She's fine just cruising around the house. She's basically fully house trained. She can hang out in the house for hours and hours. She knows she's not meant to go to the bathroom inside the house. Another step, and it's going to be a super simple step too, is setting her up so I can have a mat instead of a crate, and I can say, Miko, on your mat, and she'll just go on her mat and stay there, That'll be another one of the next videos we go up. We're doing the jumping up one and a few more things around the truck. Then from there, it'll be the next step in her stop drill. Last time we went over how to get her to stop at a distance, so she might be 20 meters away. Last video we did on her stop drill was just setting up the beginning of that. Now she's already to the point where she can be 20 meters away. I can say, Miko, sit. She just drops on the spot. Next thing will be getting some real distance on that. More compliance, sort of crisping it up, tightening it up, and going a lot further away from her, and then adding the beginnings of some distraction on the stop. More socializing. I'm going to go into sort of more obstacle work, sort of tying into the back of that stuff in and out of the truck, jumping up, introduction to water, a good time of year for that at the moment, getting her swimming and making sure she's confident with all of those sort of fun things, so we don't have a dog that's like really good at all sorts, but I want to go for a swim one day and she doesn't like that, or I want to, like what Andrew was saying, I want to run her beside the bike, but she's not set up for that. It's about setting a dog up for all of that sort of stuff. So got heaps to go over. Lots coming in the new year. It's going to be a good year. If there's no more questions, I might shut this down. You will be sending out emails to everyone who's following the Paumiko Dog Guide at the moment with full updates on all the new videos that are in there. Otherwise, log in and check them out. We're going to be posting to Facebook and Instagram a lot more. We've been pretty quiet over the last few weeks, just catching up on a bunch of stuff. And really just been getting everything lined up to hit it pretty hard in the new year. Be doing a whole heap of stuff and going hard on the Paumiko thing, finishing the Paumiko Dog Guide. Again, if you want to check it out, Paumiko Dog Training on Facebook and Instagram. Paumiko spelled Paumiko. Thanks to everyone who's following the Paumiko Dog Guide, everyone who asked the questions. If you have any more questions, ask them through the Paumiko Inner Circle Facebook page, or send us a message. Yeah, we're always reading messages, checking things, replying to everything. Just sort of trying to help people to train dogs, you know. Sweet guys, I'm going to log off. I'll see you later.